everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle from Rochelle.Handmade.Designs, and in this video we are talking about my newest collection called the Bandeh Collection. Now, some people will call it a brown collection, a brown black collection. It depends on whatever you want to call it, but I decided to call this collection the Bandeh Collection, which is Swahili, which means seriousness, intentional, someone who's really, got some seriousness to them. And this just gives me that sense of seriousness, even though I'm serious a lot of the times, but I have that playful side as well. Now, before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe button, and also turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the pattern review first, and then we'll go ahead and get into the sew along for the pants that I created for this collection. Yes. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the pattern description. Now, before I get into the pattern description, this will be a quick pattern review and off to the sew along. If you have not seen any of my videos, you guys know during sew along I put in chapters, that way you could jump to and rewind back wherever you need to go. Okay, so this will be a very quick pattern review for a few minutes and then off to the sew along. So let's start with the pattern description. So first of all, the pattern number is Butterick 6178, and for this pattern it is your Mrs. Culottes. Now the culottes have, so I did view D. View A has pleats, and view A is culottes as well. Then you have view B, which I believe are your shorts. C is another pair of culottes, and then view D, you have another pair of culottes. Now, I did view D culottes that have two front darts, two back darts. It has a waistband, has pockets as well, and a back zipper. So that's the view that I did, which is view D. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the sewing skills. I almost lost my train of thought. Sewing skills. So for the sewing skills, this is easy. So this is a easy pattern to do for the sewing skill. Let's talk about notion shoes. So the notion shoes for this, you only need a 7-inch zipper. Now on the back of the envelope, it doesn't really tell you if you need an invisible zipper or an exposed zipper, but if you look at the instructions, you need to do an exposed zipper. However, in the sew along, I talk about doing an invisible zipper only because I did not have an exposed zipper that was black, number one, and that it was like 7 to 9 inches. All of my exposed zippers were like 16 inches, and I did not want to waste the zipper, so I used a 9-inch invisible zipper in order to create these culottes. Let's talk about fabric used. So the fabric used for this is a 100% Ankara print from House of Mami Wata. Now I am sorry to tell you that this colorway is not available. However, in the description box below, I put the colorway that House of Mami Wata, CJ Madu, she has one colorway still available that you can purchase. It's like a blue, green, orange, and white. I have it myself as well, okay? So you can purchase that colorway from her as well, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that colorway on the screen so you are aware what it would look like if you decide to purchase this print. Let's talk about pattern pieces. So for the culottes, it's only 4 pattern pieces. So you have pattern piece 5, 6, 7, and 8, which you will hear again in the sew along. Pattern piece number 5 is your front, 6 is your back, 7 is your pockets, and 8 is your waistband. So it's 4 pattern pieces, and you have a nice flowy pair of culottes, which you could also cut into shorts as well. So that is the pattern pieces. Let's talk about pattern sizing. So for the pattern sizing, the first envelope comes in 6 to 14, and the second envelope comes into 14 to 22. Now the size that I cut is, I cut a size 16 for the waist portion. So I cut the waistband at 16, and also the top portion of the waist on the pants a 16. But then I graded to the 18, which gave me a 45.5-inch hip measurement, but I needed my waist to be at least a 32.5 to a 33, because my waist is now a 32.5 and it fits nice, good, and snugly, which is what I want. I should have added a 1/2 inch to give me a little bit of ease, but I'm not mad about it whatsoever. Let's talk about modifications. Did I make any modifications? No, I did not. It's super easy to sew. I would sew these again, yes. Definitely. Did it look like the photos or the drawings on the pattern envelope? Yes, outside of the print, it looks exactly like the pattern envelope. Are the instructions easy to follow? Yes, they are easy to follow, and I looked at the instructions and went over the instructions with you in the sew along just for the sake of this pattern review. They are easy to follow, but if you look at my sew along, you'll notice that I did not follow along with the instructions. I did it a different way to make it easier for you guys to understand. It's just the way that I teach. I make it easy for many of you to understand, and that is just my style and my way of teaching, okay? Likes and dislikes, there's no dislikes. They're all love because this is the third time I have sewn this pattern. I have sewn this pattern way back in like 2017 in a royal blue, a solid royal blue. I have sewn it again in a pair of black, and now I am sewing it again in 100% in-card print. So this is a revisit pattern. It is a good pattern, and this was one of the patterns that I recommended when I did the hashtag sewing 5 and below way back in March. And this is why I'm doing the sew along, because many of you asked me during that time, would I do a sew along for this pattern? So that's why I'm doing the sew along now. First time experiences. I do not have any first time experiences. Everything that I did in this sew along, I have done before. Would I sew it again? Yes, I would sew it again. I have sewn it 3 times so far. So this is a good pattern for both pants and like some quick culottes with 4 pattern pieces. I would sew it again. I would recommend this to others as well. And for my pattern rating, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 because it is a good pattern to do, if I do say so myself. Now, many of you may say that you would probably want to shorten the rise, the crotch seam, because it does hang a little low. I do notice that. Now for me, it's no big problem for me simply because I have a big bum. So because I have a big bum, I needed to make sure that it completely, you know, cover that curve, because most of the time the back is always lower and the front part is higher, and I didn't want that. So these are really good for my liking, all right? Now, if you're wondering about the blouse has a sew along for it, which is New Look 6698, which I will also link to it on the end screen so you can see that after you see the sew along or after this pattern review. So both the top and the culotte are both sew alongs that you can do. Now, I did pair these several ways, which you can see in the photos at the end of the sew along. So now that I have talked about the pattern review, let's go ahead and get over to the sew along. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the next sew along that we are doing here. This is for Butterick 6178, which is a fast and easy, very easy pattern to sew. Now, you guys have asked me to do this sew along a while back when I was doing the hashtag sewing 5 and below. And I said I will do this, but I was not intending to do it as a sew along, but since it's easy and I cut out fabric for it, I said, why not? So that's what we're doing in this tutorial today is Butterick 6178. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the tools and supplies that you need in order to construct these culottes, or you could call them gachos. Many different areas call it many different things. So a couple of things that you will need is, of course, your pattern and your instructions, some pens. I have my marking tools. The only thing I need is white soluble ink marker, but then you could also use disappearing marker as well. You need a point turner, clipper, seam ripper, and then I use rotary cutter in order to cut my paper and my fabric, and I never mix the two there. And I do have scissors just for me to cut at the sewing machine as well as the serger. That's all you need as far as tools and supplies in order to construct these culottes or gachos. So let's go ahead and get into the pattern pieces used for these culottes, Butterick 6178. So let's go ahead and talk about the pattern pieces that you need in order to construct these culottes. The first pattern piece is pattern piece number 5, which is your front. You need to cut 2 of fabric. The next pattern piece is pattern piece number 6, which is your back. You need to cut 2 of fabric for that. Next pattern piece is pattern piece number 7, which are your pockets. You need to cut 4 of fabric. And the last pattern piece is pattern piece number 8, which is your waistband, you need to cut 1 of fabric and also 1 of interfacing. Like I said, this is only 4 pattern pieces, so this will be very easy to sew and very quick. So let's go ahead and talk about the pattern instructions. Okay, so for pattern instructions, now I'm going to start from the beginning like I normally do for my pattern instructions. So like I said, we're only using 4 pattern piece, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Take note of your body measurement. Now for me, my waist is a 32.5, my hips is a 44. Now for me, I will be cutting a size 16, but use whatever size that you need on this, on your pattern, okay? So also you need to take note of the glossary, what is grain line, single thickness, double thickness. You should know that by now if you've been sewing for a little while. Also right side, wrong side of your pattern, as well as right side, wrong side of your fabric. Now for this, I am doing view D, so there's no pattern pieces that need to be face down on the fabric unless you are doing size 6, 8, or 10. Then you will need to have pattern piece number 6 down on the fabric. I'm sorry, pattern piece 6 down on the fabric, and you cut around. Now because I am cutting a size 16, all my pattern pieces will be with the right side up, okay? Also take note of interfacing pattern piece number 8, which is your waistband. You need to cut 1 of interfacing. The seam allowance for everything will be 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And read the glossary. If you don't know what E-stitching, finishing, slip stitching means, well, you should know that. Finishing means finish it off with your serger, your pinking shears, overlocking, turning it over, zigzag stitch. That's what finishing means. E-stitch is basically basically sewing the seam allowance, and then you're just going to ease, but you will sew that seam allowance 5/8 of an inch with a long machine stitch. Slip stitch is just using a needle and closing it, okay? And that's basically for your waistband. Now I'm going to start with step number 5, what we're going to do. Now I like to do a lot of steps all at once, so just make sure that some of the instructions may not mirror exactly, because I like to cut down on so many steps, which I have been teaching you guys that over the course of my Sew What series as well. So the first step, we will do number 5, the darts. Now I will be doing darts in the front and in the back of my pants at the same time. Once we do that, we will start attaching our inseam. After attaching our inseam, we're going to do our crotch seam. After doing our crotch seam, we will go ahead and install the pockets. After installing the pockets, we will go ahead and do the zipper. Once we do the zipper, we will add, I will not be doing the zipper. We will be installing the pockets, then attach our waistband. Once we attach our waistband, then we will do the zipper and then finish off with our hem. Now, the reason why I'm not doing the zipper as it states in step number 10 is because I'm using an invisible zipper and I want it to close all the way up to the waistband. If you install your zipper before you put on the waistband, you may have a gap, which means that you will be doing a hook and eye. I do not want to do a hook and eye, so I'm going to skip that step and put my zipper in after I install my waistband. I hope that makes sense, but just follow along with the sew along. Now that I talked about the pattern instructions, let's go ahead and get right on into the sewing. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and make your dart in the front as well as your back of your pants or your culottes. Now I have already done my darts. We have done darts so many times on this channel, so you could always go back to one of my videos that talks about doing darts, but you need to make dart in both your front and your back. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and do our inseams. Now this is the back of my pants, and I'm going to put the front on top, which is pattern piece number 5, and we're going to go ahead and pin the inseams, which is basically the inside of your pants, okay? So you're going to mark right sides together, and you're going to pin from top to bottom, and then sew using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So go ahead and sew your inseam for both pants leg, basically one front to one back, right sides together, and then sew your inseam on both of those. Once you sew your inseam, go ahead and finish it off and press the seam towards the back, which is pattern piece number 6. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my inseam sewn together, this is my front right here. This is my back right here. So back, front. I'm gonna turn it over on the right side. And then what we're gonna do is go ahead and sew up our crotch seam. Our crotch seam is this seam right here, okay? So go ahead and grab your other front to back. Now take note that there is a dot right here. Now once again, I want to tell you, this side over here, because I flipped it over, this side is my front, this side is my back. The back should have a dot right here. I'm hoping you can see this on camera. I'm going to try to bring it up a little bit closer right there. All right. So what you're going to do is, with right sides together, you're going to pin the front to the back, but you're going to pin all the way up to that dot in the back and leave the rest of it open. Okay. So it's basically like sewing the romper that I sewed together a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty much the kind of the same way. Okay. So what we're going to do is pin at the inseam. So we're going to pin right here. Make sure your seams are pressed towards the back this direction, and you're going to pin. And then make sure that you pin at all the notch. So you have a notch there, and you have a notch over here, which you have double notches, which you should pin there. And then I'm going to pin where that dot is in the back right here. That's going to be my stopping point. And now pin all the way around your crotch, okay? So go ahead and pin your crotch seam now. All right, so now that I have my crotch seam pinned, starting at the front, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, so all the way around your crotch, and back stitch at this dot, all right? Do not sew from the dot up, okay? Leave that open, okay? Just leave it open for now. After you sew to this dot, what I want you to do is go ahead and finish off separately. Finish off your back seam where your zipper is going to be, clip to that dot, but do not clip through it, and then finish off your seam allowance from your front all the way to that dot of the crotch line. You could finish those together, or you could finish them separately. That's completely up to you. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my inseam sewn and finished off, and I finished off the back from the dot up right here separately, now what you're going to do is go ahead and open it out, right? So you should have your back right here where your zipper is going to be. Now I did not want to move my zipper from the back to the side. You have that option, which I will show you how to do that in a different tutorial, but not this one. So now what you should have is your front, which is right here, and your back where you have that opening right here. So basically you have front to back, right sides together. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put our pockets on. Now, I have said this in so many tutorials that you will insert your pockets, you will put your pockets on, but you will only be understitching on the front pockets. So the pockets that you put on the back, you will not understitch. So this section right here that you have the opening, you will not understitch the pockets on the back, just understitch the front. So go ahead and grab your pockets, and what you're going to do is, with right sides together, you're going to put your pockets on the back as well as the front. So go ahead and pin your pockets to your back and your front now, and then go to the sewing machine and, using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and then finish off your seams. Do that for both your front and your back, but only understitch at 1/4 of an inch on the pockets. Press your seams towards the pocket and understitch on the front pockets only. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the pockets sewn onto both the front and the back, I went ahead and understitched on my front pockets. The seam allowance is facing towards the pockets. So now what we're going to do is sew up our side seams and attach our pockets, our front pockets, to our back pockets with right sides together. So go ahead, and with right sides together, you want to go ahead and take your back and put it on your front. And I'm just going to turn it. And what we're going to do is go ahead and stitch our side seams together. So you want to make sure that it's pretty darn straight, right? And then just make sure that you pin the top. You should have 2 dots. You probably can't see mine on camera, but I could see mine. So I'm gonna pin at the top and pin where that first dot is, making sure that your pockets are even. And you wanna make sure that the length of your pants or shorts, culottes, gachos, whatever you want to call them, are even as well. So I'm going to pin at that first dot, which is right here. And then I'm going to go down and pin at the second dot right here. And now I'm going to pin the length of my pant and my pocket, around my pocket area as well. So go ahead and pin now. So now that I have my side seam and my pockets pinned, using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, and then sew down to this first dot, back stitch at that dot and break your thread. Start at the second dot, back stitch at the second dot, and sew all the way down to the end, the hem area. Once you do that, come back to the top and sew around your pocket using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you do that, go ahead and finish off the side seam. You should be finishing it off from where you stop. If you sewing them together like I am, I'm gonna sew from this double notch or the notch that you have on the side seam all the way down, finish that off, and then finish off my pockets. Do that on both sides. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and did my pockets, and after doing my pockets, I went ahead and sewed the side seam right here as well. And then I made sure to base the top portion of my pocket to the front portion of my trousers, culottes, gachos, whatever you want to name them, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and turn my pants right side out. So go ahead and turn your pants right side out. And you want to have the back on the table. Well, actually I'm going to have the front on the table instead of the back. And just make sure your pockets is to the front instead of to the back, okay? And I love the fact that this pattern has deep pockets, okay? Now, one thing I want to mention is you have 2 notches right here. That is for your waistband. So we're going to start putting on our waistband. So go ahead and grab your waistband, which is pattern piece number 6, and you have 2 notches right here, but you do not have any notches on the other side. So what you want to do is pin at your notch. And then you're going to pin all the way around with right sides together. So I'm going to pin at that notch. I'm going to pin at this other notch. And then I'm going to pin in the center. And now what I'm going to do is make sure I pin all the way around. Now you have some dots, which you'll see X's on mine because I have a dark fabric. That matches up to your side seam. So I'm just going to pin both of those at my side seam and then pin all the way around. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my waistband pinned all the way around, it should fit with the back fitting right here where you're going to insert your zipper, okay? So it should fit all the way around. If you have any excess, that means you cut the wrong size waistband. Whatever size that you cut for your bottom portion is this at the waist is the same size that you need to cut for your waistband. Even if you made a hip adjustment, you need to cut the same size for your waistband, okay? So using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and sew all the way around, back stitch at the end, trim down your seam allowance, and then press your seam allowance up towards the waistband. Go ahead and do that, and once you do that, just go ahead and do that first, and we'll continue with the next steps. All right, so now that I went ahead and insert basically attach my waistband onto my trousers, pants, culottes, whatever. The next thing we're gonna do is insert our zipper. Okay, so you guys have seen me do zippers so many times, so this is not gonna be anything new to you. But the first thing I want you to do is take the top portion of your waistband. Now, make sure you fold this at the very top, do 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, press it all the way around, and then trim it down to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, okay? I have not done mine, but I'm gonna do mine here shortly. So it's going to be folded kind of like this. And then what you want to do, and I'm gonna do mine here shortly, so this part's gonna be folded up like this. What you want to do is make a little snip halfway. So when you fold it down onto itself, make a really tiny snip. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that's where my invisible zipper will stop. So I'm gonna place the top portion of my zipper here and then sew all the way down. You're gonna do the same thing to the other side. So you want to kind of fold that up, fold it onto itself, and then make a quick snip. Not big, you just want to make a little tiny snip. And that's just basically to say where your zipper will be placed. Now make sure that when you made your snip, that your zipper is not off balance. So I'm looking and both of my snips are good to go. So now what you want to do, if you have not done so already, is go ahead and create or press under 5/8 of an inch seam allowance along the top portion of your waistband and then trim it down to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and pressed my seam allowance up towards the waistband, I went ahead and created a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around, making a basting stitch, and then I trimmed it down to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and went ahead and pressed all the way around, okay? I trimmed it down, so this is what it's looking like so far. Now, what you want to do is turn your gachos, pants, whatever, trousers, wrong side out, and we're going to go ahead and start installing our zipper. Now, you guys have seen me do zippers so many times, so it shouldn't be nothing new to you by now on how I install my invisible zipper. So what you want to do is, with right sides together, you want to pin at that notch that we made. Pin at the end, the top and the bottom. And then if you need more pins to pin along the zipper area, you can do that, okay? So go ahead and pin there. Now, I'm not gonna walk you through how to do an invisible zipper all the way because we have done this on the channel so many times, but I do wanna make sure that you are matching up your seam lines to where one is not down and one's up, okay? So make sure that is matching up as well for when you install your zipper. Now back to what I was saying about the zipper. I'm not going to walk you through how to do an invisible zipper because we have done that on the channel several times. Now, you're going to install your invisible zipper. I'm just going to explain to you how you're going to do it. You're going to back stitch at this dot, back stitch at the dot, and sew all the way up using a basting stitch. So back stitch at the dot and then sew all the way up using a basting stitch. Press your seams open. Once you press your seams open, if you would like to stabilize it, because you guys know that I stabilize my zipper area for every single zipper that I sew in. So I'm going to stabilize my zipper area. After I stabilize it, I'm going to base my zipper on and finish off my zipper. So go ahead and install your invisible zipper. If you are unsure how to do an invisible zipper, you could go ahead and look at my Sew What series. It's my Sew What project number 5, which I did a 2-piece knit set. It will walk you through how to do an invisible zipper. There are so many sew-alongs that I have done with invisible zippers, so I will not be walking you through that in this tutorial, okay? So go ahead and do your invisible zipper now, and then we'll continue with the next steps. All right, so now that I went ahead and sewn my center back seam together where the zipper is going to be, I went ahead and stabilized the zipper area, pressed the seam open. Now, the only reason why I did this is because I'm going to show you where you want to put your zipper at. Now, if you have a 7-inch zipper, now my zipper is a 9-inch zipper, so mine's going to go all the way up. But what you want to do if you have a 7-inch zipper is you want to put your zipper stop right where you have those little clips, okay? Because when you fold it over, it'll catch it, okay? Now, because mine is long, I'm going to put the bottom portion at the very bottom, and I'm only pinning on one side. So let me grab my pins. And all I'm going to do is pin on one side, baste it down, and then baste the other side down and finish off my zipper. So go ahead, pin the other side, and then after you pin the other side, go ahead and do your zipper the same way you would normally do. I'm only showing you this part just in case you just have a 7-inch zipper instead of a longer zipper like I do. And I use longer zippers only because it keeps the zipper stop out of my way when I'm sewing, okay? Now that I have it pinned, I'm just gonna baste down one side, baste down the opposite side, remove my basting stitch, and then finish off using a regular length stitch. Once you do that, come back to your sewing table, and then we will continue with finishing off our zipper and our waistband. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the zipper installed, well, basically on, it's just basted on. The next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and use my seam ripper and remove the basting stitch. So go ahead and remove that basting stitch now. All right, so now that I removed my basting stitch, I'm just gonna clean up the thread area. So go ahead and clean up your thread area from where you took out your basting stitch, and then go ahead and unzip your invisible zipper, just like that. So it's looking really good on the inside and the outside, which is what you want, okay? Now, I'm gonna turn my pants or trousers, whatever, this direction. And now what you want to do is open out your trousers. And the first thing you want to do is stitch along the grooves of the zipper, but not stitching on. So you want to get this together. So go ahead and finish off your zipper now that we have went ahead and basted it in. Finish off your zipper. Once you do that, you have two options, okay? So you see where this little snip is? Now, my snip is right there. So what I'm gonna do is take my zipper, I'm going to push that to the back and pull this down, making sure that this is out of my way and this finished edge is right at the bottom of my waistband, okay? Now, this is after you have went ahead and sewn your permanent stitch on your zipper. That's what you're going to do. That's why I had you do the clip right there. You're just going to pin it down, and then you're just going to sew 5/8 of an inch, well, basically 5/8 of an inch, which is close to this zipper teeth. You're just going to finish that off on both sides. You're going to do the same thing the other way. So you're just going to move this out the way. That if your zipper is extending like mine, move that out the way. Now you want to make sure that this zipper is out of your way. You do not want to accidentally sew that portion. So just make sure it's out of your way, and you pin down right here, and then sew close to the zipper teeth, okay? Without sewing on the zipper teeth. Once you do that, the only thing left for you to do is go ahead and either stitch in the ditch or slip stitch. But the first thing I want you to do is go ahead and finish off your zipper and finish off your waistband. Go ahead and do that and come back and we'll continue. All right, so now that I went ahead and finished off my zipper, so when I zip it up, it's completely concealed. It's No issues. It's a nice flawless zipper. I went ahead and put my label on the inside of my garment. So basically when I wear it, it's always on the right hand side of whatever I wear. All right. So the only thing left for you to do is, now I'm going to be doing slip stitch. Instead of slip stitching, I think I'm just going to stitch in the ditch, which is right here using my stitch in the ditch foot on my sewing machine. But you have the options of hand sewing it, basically slip stitching your waistband all the way around, or you could do what I am doing, is making sure that that finished edge is right on that stitching line, a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch past it, and then you're going to stitch in the ditch of the waistband. Okay, once you do that, the only thing left for you to do is your hem. Now I have already done my hem, but you're going to press up 1.25 inches. Now I am not encasing it. I just went ahead and serged all the way around because you're not going to see it on the inside, to be honest, and I just wanted this to be kind of like a casual type thing. So I just went ahead, pressed up 1/4 inch, and then stitch as close to that 1/4 inch line as possible. Once you do that, you are all done with your culottes, your gachos, your pants, whatever you want to call. Style it and show me. And if you make these pants, tag me on Instagram at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. So there you have it. That is the full pattern review and the sew along. I hope you like. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. So I'll catch you in the next video, and as always, keep sewing.